For many nights, no one slept well. Gryffindor Tower feared the return of Sirius Black. Throughout the castle, rooms were searched and security was tightened, but the elusive Black remained at large. And much to Ron and Hermione's concern, there was no sign of Scabbers or Crookshanks either.
Look, I'm just saying that it's very weird that the night Scabbers goes missing, that cat of yours decides to slip out too.
Okay, Ron, you've made your point. I'm as worried as you are. But right now we're missing something else. Potion ingredients. And we haven't got much time before Professor Snape expects us in class.
I solemnly swear that I'm up to no good. Welcome back to WaterparkRanger's Let's Play Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. In the last episode, we retrieved the fairy wings from Hogsmeade and did a lot of really shitty stealth segments at night, which were just an insult to the entire stealth genre of gaming. Is stealth a genre? It's usually crossed with something else, like Metal Gear. Metal Gear is usually not just straight up stealth, because you've got, like, weird battles and other stuff. Anyway, we could finally return the telescope that we got back in, like, episode 14, and for the first time, we can actually take a quest from the notice board without it being a problem. Yeah, that's a real rarity. We got the quest for the Daily Prophet in the hospital wing. That's one of the things I've noticed about this game, is that out of all the Lost and Found quests that you receive, none of them do that thing in Chamber of Secrets where, like, after a certain point in Chamber of Secrets, there would be Lost and Found items that when you read the description on the board would say things like, it was dropped from an owl parcel, so it could be anywhere, or something like that. They never do that in this game. They always tell you pretty much exactly where to find it, which I'm guessing they pretty much got complaints about that, and so they decided to fix it too. Some of these things, maybe they didn't have to have complaints for, but they were like, okay, this was clearly a stupid design choice, so we're going to fix it. And I'm glad they did that. Overall, though, like, Chamber of Secrets does get some things more refined than Prisoner of Azkaban. The controls, for one thing, are a lot clunkier in Prisoner of Azkaban. That actually might be one of my biggest complaints with the game, is that if you compare the two, Chamber of Secrets is a definite step up from Prisoner of Azkaban's controls, despite being the earlier game. Hagrid seems really upset about Buckbeak, so I've decided that it would only be fitting for Ron to lighten his mood. So just enjoy while we cheer up Hagrid.
Stop it!
Oh, Hagrid, you know that always makes you laugh. But not today. Anyway, out here, winter has already ended. What they said at the beginning of this episode was that many nights have passed since whatever night we got Expecto Patronum. For the first time, I'm pretty sure, in the Harry Potter series, they actually give an explanation as to why the game's only like 4 or 5 days long. And the reason why is because many nights have passed. Yeah, pretty much the entire school year passed between, like, last episode and this one. Because this is just going to be the final day and night, besides, you know, the typical award ceremony day or whatever, the last one when you're free to get any cards or anything left behind that you want to get. Although, because we were getting everything along the way, actually, once we beat the final boss, this is just going to be it for this game. All in all, I can't say whether or not this is going to be longer or shorter than Prisoner of Azkaban. I think it's going to be shorter in terms of episodes, for sure, but it might be longer overall. We'll see. As you've probably guessed, yes, Doxies. We're fighting a lot of Doxies, and they're poisoning our party, so you're going to get to see the aggravating effects of Doxy poison. The good news is that they haven't been able to bite Hermione yet. So just keep strafing around and shooting with Flipendo. This is why it's good to have all those powerful dark forces, because, yeah, you have to fight 4 Doxies at once. Really troublesome. And now we're finally going to get to put some of those antidotes to use. The first time I played this game, I actually ran out of antidotes early on in the Carpet Retractive dungeon, because they just don't supply you with many of them. They're just not easy to come across. And I used them up easily because I'd get bit more often than I was able to heal. And I wasn't able to kill the Doxies very easily because I was really bad at targeting with this horrible control setup. Which, by the way, is the only control setup you get. And over here, we're just going to be using Wig and Weld to heal up all the damage that we took. Because the potion doesn't actually give you back your HP. The antidote doesn't actually give you back your HP, it just stops you from being poisoned. It's what you'd figure from an antidote. That's usually how antidotes work in RPGs and whatnot. So now that Doxies are out of the way, we can collect the Doxy eggs by using Carpet Retractum on them and pulling them off the tree. Although we only need We only need 3 of them. There's 4 for whatever reason, so I'm just gonna take the 4th one. Because why let Doxies hatch? That's my thought. Might as well turn them into potion supplies. Doxies are really awful animals. Who knows though, maybe Doxies have their own culture, and they're just like being mistreated by wizards as a group. They might be considered like second-class citizens, and they're trying to strike back against the wizards who mistreat them and use them as potion ingredients. That makes me actually feel a fair bit of sympathy for them. You know what? Let's let them have Snape, because we could honestly do without him. Like, the characters that actually matter a lot in the Harry Potter series and are well-developed and well-written seem to be the ones that make the shittiest transition to the games. Like, just Snape is obviously one of the best Harry Potter characters, but as soon as he's in this game, like in Prisoner of Azkaban, he's a complete idiot. I mean, you just look at him, his face, the way he's designed, he's just repulsive. And the same thing with Neville. Like, Neville is actually one of the more interesting characters in the Harry Potter series, because he goes from being a complete butt monkey to basically being the other hero, the guy who's really brave and stood up even though he wasn't all that powerful of a wizard. But in these games, he's just a whiny, annoying, trailing little farting brat, and he's dreadful. I really hate him. Actually, I like Gilderoy Lockhart a lot in the games. The thing that I like about Gilderoy Lockhart in the Chamber of Secrets game is that they completely, like, forgot about the fact that Gilderoy Lockhart was a fraud who betrays them to, like, steal their memories in the Chamber of Secrets. No, there's none of that. Instead, Gilderoy Lockhart's just kind of like a foppish, egotistical dude who's really not all that bad. I really enjoy him in the games. In the games, he's, like, a nicer person. Plus, I always enjoyed the introduction that he gives to the Expelliarmus Challenge Chamber. That's kind of actually one of my favorite moments in games, if you can believe it or not, is Lockhart's introduction to that dungeon. That's like maybe one of my favorite introductions to any dungeon. So to get the Flying Seahorse potion ingredients, you get a really weird Flying Seahorse minigame. Unlike the other minigames in this game, that can actually be accessed from the title screen, you can only find Flying Seahorse fishing right here in this part of the game. It's really simple. You just target them and then pull back gently with Carpe Retractum. There's no skill to it at all. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You just keep trying until you get 3 of them, and that's all there is to it. It's just bizarre, and of course if you want, you can collect more, but there's no real reason to do that. Like, you don't get any extra points. I'm pretty sure they don't even show any extra Flying Seahorses stocked in your inventory. It's very odd, and of course once you want to leave, you just press the A button to go back to this area. The unfortunate thing is, and you couldn't tell this because I had to cut it out, but there's a load time for Flying Seahorses, and there's a load time for getting out of the Flying Seahorse minigame. It's quite irritating. All the load times in this game, that's actually one of the biggest downsides. I'd say that for the Potter games, the really good ones, that is, like Chamber of Secrets and Prisoner of Azkaban, because yes, they are really good in comparison to the other Harry Potter games. The biggest problems with them is that, like with these 2 games, the load times. The load times just, they keep stopping the action for so long, and it just gets obnoxious, and it makes it a trial to play sometimes. It can really get you tired out in the game. The other big downside is, though, you've got this huge castle. You see that door over there? Yeah, you've got all these huge castles, and then all these doors that you simply can't go inside. And it really bothers me, because, you know, you made Hogwarts Castle. Why not let you explore it fully? I mean, I'm glad that they had some secret rooms, like, say, the area that they had in Muggle Studies that Hermione had to go in by herself and fight those rubber ducks, and then find like the extra beans and solve those puzzles and stuff. They just needed more stuff like that in general. And that brings me to my final complaint about these games. Yeah, if I had to have 3 major complaints, the final one would be that they've got a pretty good formula down for stealing from Zelda, like the way you get spells as items, the way you equip them, and use them in dungeons against bosses and stuff. Don't get me wrong, I like that formula. The problem is, like, if they went ahead and stole it, why did they only, like, make about 3 dungeons per game? Usually Zelda games have around 7 or more dungeons. I mean, not all of them. I mean, Majora's Mask didn't have that many. But Majora's Mask was different because you had a couple mini dungeons that also went on for quite some time, like the Ancient Castle of Ikana, the Pirate's Fortress, the Spider Houses, and what have you. Like, Majora's Mask, I mean, is a black sheep of the Zelda series in general, so it shouldn't be used as a standard Zelda. Shouldn't be used comparing it to other Zelda games. But the bottom line is, like, why not just put in more dungeons than you did? That would make these games about 1.5 times better, which might not sound like much, but it is. It would have made them reasonably better, and I could have gone from saying these games are decent to these games are really quite good. And as they stand, they're just pretty decent. And, I mean, for movie adaptation games, as I've mentioned in the Chamber of Secrets LP, they're some of the best ones out there. I mean, that's changed in recent years because there's just been better movie adaptation games than there used to be. There used to only be, like, the only good movie adaptation games were, the Harry Potter games and, like, Spider-Man 2, and that was about it. Because if you ever played Spider-Man 1, you know how bootleg that is compared to Spider-Man 2. Anyway, these are the final potion ingredients that we need to collect, the giant dragonflies. You might have already noticed what the basic deal with them is, but I'll explain it in case you don't understand. The dragonflies hover close, and then when they do, you need to have the fire from the Draconophorus statue set them on fire, so that they drop their dragonfly thorax on the ground, like the toasted dragonfly thorax, which almost sounds weirdly tasty. It probably shouldn't, but giant dragonfly? I don't know. Who knows? Sounds pretty crispy. It's just really annoying to time it right. You just kind of have to wait for it and be patient, and then when it starts flying in your direction, once it starts flying in your direction and gets really close, that's your chance to hit the statue with Draconophores. Draconophores is just kind of an awkward spell because it aims weirdly. And if you hold down the button, it doesn't get stronger or anything. Like, in Chamber of Secrets, whenever you held down a spell, generally it would get stronger. And in this game, that tends to not be the case in, like, any case except for maybe Flipendo. No, not even Flipendo, now that I think about it. If you hold down the Flipendo button, you'd kind of just shoot rapid fire instead of holding down and then releasing a stronger spell. That's actually missing from this game now that I think about it. It's really weird. Like, that was actually one of the things I liked more about Chamber of Secrets, I guess, in comparison to this game. I suppose that some people prefer the rapid fire, but shooting a really powerful spell in Chamber of Secrets was much more satisfying. There are some satisfying multi-striking attacks in games. Like, for example, on most of the One Piece games, it's usually pretty fun to use Luffy's Gum Gatling gun. And generally I do prefer multi-striking attacks, because strong ones that you have to charge up and then use, that's just not my preferred playstyle mostly. But in this game, with such imprecise targeting, well, actually, maybe due to how imprecise the targeting is, it makes sense to have a lot of attacks instead of one big one, because one big one would be too easy to miss. With a lot of spells, you have more of a chance of hitting the target. Okay, I guess I can understand then from a gameplay standpoint why they decided to change that. But it's still a little bit weird to think that they would have decided how to program the spells based on how bad the controls and lock-on scheme were. It still seems a little odd to me. But, you know, it's the Harry Potter game series, and if it doesn't seem odd to me, it seems odd to someone else. That's just the way this series is. And yet, it's pretty enjoyable. For all its faults, the good parts make it worth playing. And worth buying, now that it's so cheap these days. I mean, these games are really cheap to pick up. You can get them for like $1 to $5 at your local GameStop, or I'm sure you can get them pretty cheap online as well, but why pay for the shipping, you know?
This is the way.
We're going to be ending this episode off with a cutscene in Snape's class, and because I'm not going to talk over it, I want him to introduce the final potion. I'm just going to say goodbye to you guys right now, and until next time, mischief managed.
And this leaves you with the girding potion, which may be consumed to increase one's endurance for a considerable number of weeks. I do warn those of you who wish to experiment with this potion that the maximum dosage is no more than 2 of these vials. Class dismissed.